Have you ever trusted something so completely, only to find out later that it was quietly working against you? That's exactly what your refrigerator might be doing. We've all been taught to keep our food cold to keep it fresh. It sounds logical, right? But not everything belongs in there. In fact, some of the most common foods, things like potatoes, tomatoes, and even garlic, can actually lose nutrients or become harmful when stored in the fridge. That is why today's video matters. Let me ask you something. Have you ever opened your fridge, stared at a tomato or a loaf of bread, and thought, is this where it's really supposed to be? You're not alone. A lot of people, especially older adults, have been taught that cold equals fresh. But the truth is, that's not always the case. Some foods actually suffer in the cold. They lose nutrients, texture, and taste. And worse, they might even turn harmful. That is why today we're going to talk about 9 foods you should never refrigerate. We will break down the science, share real-life examples, and give you simple tips that you can start using today. Because knowing better means living better. Let's get real for a second. According to the CDC, nearly 48 million people in the United States get sick from foodborne illness each year. And here's the kicker. Older adults are more likely to be seriously affected. But we're not just talking about undercooked meat or bad dairy. Sometimes it starts with things as simple as storing garlic, bread, or potatoes in the fridge. It seems harmless, right? But that mistake can lead to mold, nutrient loss, or even dangerous chemical changes. So stay with me. This might just be the easiest health fix you make this year. Picture this. A slice of bread turns moldy overnight. Garlic stored in oil grows bacteria. A simple banana loses its nutrients. It is not dramatic, but it is real. These small choices, over time, can affect how you feel day to day. They can impact digestion, energy levels, even your immune system. And fixing it? It is as simple as moving a few things around in your kitchen. Let's start with one you probably have sitting in a drawer right now, potatoes. They're easy, they're filling, and they go with just about anything. But if you're keeping them in the fridge, we need to talk. Here's what happens. When raw potatoes are stored in cold temperatures, their natural starches start turning into sugar. Sounds harmless, right? Well, not quite. Because when those sugar-loaded potatoes are later baked, fried, or roasted, especially at high heat, they can form a chemical called acrylamide. And acrylamide isn't something you want on your plate. It's been linked to cancer in lab animal studies. And while the science is still evolving, food safety experts are watching it closely. For older adults, especially those managing inflammation or weakened immune systems, it's a risk not worth taking. But it's not just about health. You know that weirdly sweet flavor? That mushy, dark texture? That's your fridge doing its thing, and not in a good way. It wrecks the taste and kills the texture. And the nutrients? They're not spared either. Cold temps can reduce vitamin C and other benefits that make potatoes a healthy choice in the first place. I once visited a friend who kept all their potatoes in the fridge. They made homemade fries, and let me tell you, they came out with an odd sweetness that didn't sit right. It's a small thing, but it changed the entire meal. So what should you do instead? Easy. Keep them in a cool, dark, dry spot, like a pantry, cupboard, or cellar. Use a mesh bag or a wooden crate to let them breathe. That's it. Simple move, big payoff. You get better taste, more nutrition, and no unnecessary chemicals. If you've been refrigerating your potatoes, don't beat yourself up. It's a common habit. But now that you know better, you can do better. Let's move on to the next one. And remember, sometimes the smallest changes in the kitchen can make the biggest difference for your health and your meals. Let's talk about bread. A warm slice of toast in the morning or a sandwich in the afternoon. It's comfort food for many of us. So it makes sense to want to keep it fresh, right? And where do most people put it? In the fridge. But here's the twist. That fresh keeping move is actually what makes your bread go stale faster. It's all about science. When bread is exposed to cold air, the starch molecules inside begin to crystallize. This process is called retrogradation. And what that means in plain English, your soft, chewy bread becomes firm and dry, sometimes overnight. Ever pulled out a slice the next day and thought, why does this feel like cardboard? That's why. The fridge sucks the moisture out and turns your loaf into something almost inedible. And there's more. When that cold slice meets warm air, like when you open the bag on the counter, moisture builds up inside the bag. That creates the perfect little greenhouse for mold to grow, especially if it's humid. This matters even more for older adults who might have weaker immune systems or are more sensitive to mold exposure. Eating moldy bread can cause stomach upset, allergies, or worse. Now, here's the good news. Storing bread properly is simple. If you're going to eat it within a few days, keep it at room temperature in a sealed bag or bread box. Want to make it last longer? Slice it, freeze it, and just toast what you need. It'll come out warm, crispy, and delicious, no sogginess in sight. I had a neighbor who always kept her bread in the fridge. She thought it helped it last longer. But once she switched to freezing it instead, she told me it actually tastes like real bread again. Sometimes, all it takes is one small change to bring back the joy of your daily meals. And next, we're looking at something small but mighty: onions. Remember, bread is one of those foods that feeds our body and our memories. Store it wisely, and you'll taste the difference every time. Now, let's talk about onions. You might not think twice about where you store them. They are small, they are strong, and they go in almost everything. But here's the thing. Your fridge is not where they belong. Whole onions actually come with their own natural protection. That papery skin, it is there for a reason. When you put onions in the fridge, the cold and moisture start breaking that skin down. The layers inside soften. The surface gets wet. And before you know it, your onions are soggy, dark, and sometimes even moldy. And the smell? Let's not forget the smell. Onions are full of sulfur compounds. And in the closed space of your refrigerator, those smells go everywhere. You open the fridge for some fruit or butter, and surprise, it smells like onions. And worse, that flavor can even transfer. No one wants onion-scented strawberries. It gets trickier when you cut them. Once an onion is sliced open, it becomes vulnerable. If you just toss it in the fridge without wrapping it tightly, bacteria can grow fast. That's not just about losing flavor. That can lead to foodborne illness, especially for people with weaker immune systems. So what is the better option? Store whole onions in a cool, dry, well-ventilated place. A mesh bag or a wooden crate in the pantry works great. Air circulation is key. And for cut onions, wrap them tightly in plastic or keep them in an airtight glass container. Use them within a couple of days for the best flavor and safety. I remember my aunt once stored onions in a plastic bag inside her fridge. After just 3 days, they were slimy, and everything else in the fridge smelled like a diner's kitchen. She switched to a hanging basket in the pantry and never looked back. It's a simple switch, but it saves your ingredients, your meals, and your peace of mind. Next up, we're diving into tomatoes and why the fridge steals their sunshine. Take care of your onions, and they'll take care of your meals with better flavor and longer shelf life. Let's move on to tomatoes. Bright, juicy, and packed with flavor, they are one of the most popular fruits used in cooking. Whether it is a fresh salad, a sandwich, or a rich pasta sauce, tomatoes add color and life to a dish. But the moment they hit the fridge, something goes wrong. Tomatoes are tropical fruits. They're not built for cold temperatures. When you refrigerate them, especially before they're fully ripe, the cold damages their internal structure. That leads to a mealy texture and a dull, flat taste. Ever bitten into a tomato that felt rubbery or watery? That's exactly what chilling does. And then there's the nutrition factor. Tomatoes are a great source of vitamin C, which supports your immune system. But studies have shown that cold storage can break down some of those valuable nutrients. So, by keeping your tomatoes cold, you're actually losing part of what makes them so healthy in the first place. I remember making a tomato salad, once using tomatoes I had stored in the fridge. They looked fine, but the flavor was bland. Since then, I keep them in a bowl on the counter, and they've been sweeter and more flavorful every time. Here's what to do instead. Store your tomatoes at room temperature. Place them stem side down in a shallow bowl or basket. Keep them out of direct sunlight, but let them breathe. This helps them ripen naturally and develop their full flavor. And if they start getting too soft, do not throw them out. Use them in soups, sauces, or roast them with a bit of olive oil. Nothing has to go to waste. Tomatoes deserve to be enjoyed at their best. Skip the fridge, and you'll taste the difference every time. Coming up next, the truth about garlic. You might be surprised how the fridge can actually turn this superfood into a danger. Simple storage choices lead to better meals and better health. It is all connected. Some chefs even say a tomato should never be refrigerated, not even for a few hours, because the flavor never fully comes back. Think about it. When you buy tomatoes from a farmer's market, they're always out on the table, soaking up the air, not hidden in a cooler. That's because flavor and freshness thrive at room temperature, not in the cold. Now let's talk about garlic. Just one clove can turn a bland dish into something rich and flavorful. It is also considered a superfood. Garlic has been linked to lowering blood pressure, reducing inflammation, and even fighting off colds. But if you're storing garlic in the fridge, especially whole bulbs, you might be robbing it of those benefits, and maybe even making it dangerous. Here's why. Garlic likes to be kept dry and cool, not cold and moist. When you refrigerate whole garlic bulbs, the cloves start to sprout early. That green shoot in the center, that's a sign the garlic is aging quickly. It also changes the flavor, less sharp and more bitter. The texture becomes rubbery too. But the real concern comes when garlic is chopped or minced and stored in oil. Many people do this to save time or make homemade dressings. But without acid, this mix can grow a bacteria called Clostridium botulinum. It is rare, but it causes botulism, a serious illness that affects the nervous system. Seniors and people with weakened immunity are at higher risk. And the scary part? You often can't see or smell the danger. The FDA has warned about this, but many home cooks still refrigerate garlic in oil without knowing. I once had a neighbor who prepped garlic for the whole week this way. She ended up tossing all of it once she found out the risk. So what should you do instead? Store whole bulbs in a mesh bag, open basket, or paper bag. Keep them in a cool, dark place with good airflow. Do not store them in plastic or sealed containers. If you need to prep garlic ahead of time, store it with lemon juice or vinegar. The acid slows bacterial growth and gives it a tangy kick too. Better yet, chop it fresh when you need it. It only takes a minute, and the flavor is unbeatable. Garlic is powerful, but only when you treat it with care. Respect the clove, and it will reward you every time. Let's talk about coffee. For a lot of people, it's not just a drink, it's a ritual. That first cup in the morning sets the tone for the whole day. The smell alone can make you feel more awake. But if you've been storing your coffee in the fridge, you might be ruining that morning magic without realizing it. Coffee beans and grounds are hygroscopic. That means they absorb moisture and odors from the air around them. Now think about your fridge. It's full of smells, onions, leftovers, maybe even last night's takeout. If your coffee isn't sealed tight, it's going to start tasting like whatever it's sitting next to. And it's not just about flavor. Coffee contains antioxidants, compounds that support your heart, brain, and even protect your cells from damage. But moisture and temperature changes can break those down over time. Each time you open the fridge, that warm air rushes in, then gets cold again when you close the door. That creates condensation inside your coffee container. The result? Clumpy grounds, stale taste, and a weaker brew. I remember visiting a friend who swore her coffee just didn't taste right anymore. Turned out, she was keeping her grounds in a plastic tub in the fridge. Once she switched to an airtight jar in a dark pantry, her coffee tasted fresh again. She said it was like going from diner brew to cafe quality. So what should you do instead? Store your coffee in an opaque, airtight container at room temperature. Keep it in a cupboard away from heat and light. And if you grind your own beans, only grind what you need for the day. Fresh grounds make all the difference. Coffee is a small joy, but small joys matter, especially when they start your day. Treat your beans right, and they'll return the favor every morning, with a cup that actually tastes like coffee. Next up, let's look at something sweet and sticky, honey. And no, it does not belong in the fridge either. Now let's take a moment to appreciate honey. Golden, sweet, and packed with history, honey has been used for thousands of years. People have turned to it for soothing sore throats, healing small wounds, and even boosting their immune systems. It's one of those rare foods that doesn't spoil unless we interfere. Here's the mistake: putting honey in the fridge. A lot of folks do it thinking it'll help it last longer. But the truth is, honey doesn't need refrigeration. It's naturally antibacterial and shelf-stable. When you refrigerate honey, the cold causes it to crystallize. That smooth texture becomes gritty, hard, and sometimes cloudy. It's still safe to eat, sure, but it's no longer enjoyable. And getting it out of the jar becomes a chore. Even worse, moisture is honey's enemy. Every time you take the jar out of the fridge and open it, condensation can sneak in. Over time, that added moisture can lead to fermentation. The result? A sour smell, a fizzy taste, and sometimes even foam on top. That's not honey doing its job. That's honey gone wrong. I had an uncle who kept a big jar of honey in the fridge for years. One day he opened it and said, "Why does this smell weird?" It had fermented. All he needed to do was leave it in a cabinet, and it would have lasted just fine. So what's the right way to store it? Keep honey in a tightly sealed glass jar at room temperature, away from direct sunlight and heat. A pantry or a kitchen shelf works perfectly. And if it does crystallize, no problem. Just place the jar in a bowl of warm water and stir gently. It will go back to its smooth, golden state. Honey is one of the most powerful natural foods we have. It deserves better than a cold, damp fridge. Treat it right, and it'll take care of you for years. Coming up next, bananas. They may look fine in the fridge, but trust me, the cold is not their friend. Let's talk about bananas. They're one of the most popular fruits in the world, and for good reason. They're soft, sweet, and easy to digest. Full of potassium and fiber, they help support heart health and digestion. For older adults, they make the perfect snack, gentle on the stomach and easy to eat. But here's the problem: bananas do not like the cold. In fact, the fridge is probably the worst place you can put them. Bananas are tropical fruits. They ripen in warm, humid climates. When you put them in the fridge, especially before they're fully ripe, the cold disrupts that ripening process. What you end up with is a banana that looks awful, gray or black skin, and has a mushy, bland inside. It may not be spoiled, but it sure doesn't taste good. And there's more. Cold storage also reduces some of the powerful antioxidants found in bananas, like dopamine and catechins. These compounds help reduce inflammation and support brain health. So when you refrigerate bananas, you're not just hurting the texture. You're losing valuable nutrients, too. I had a cousin who used to keep his bananas in the fridge, thinking it helped them last longer. But every time he peeled one, he'd say, "Why does this taste weird?" Once he started keeping them at room temperature, the flavor improved, and so did the texture. So what's the best way to store bananas? Keep them on the counter at room temperature. If possible, hang them to prevent bruising and allow for airflow. If they're ripening too fast, separate them from each other to slow things down. And if they get too ripe, don't toss them. Peel and freeze them for smoothies or baking. Banana bread, anyone? Bananas were never meant to be chilled. They thrive in warmth. And when you store them right, they reward you with flavor, nutrition, and convenience. Up next, olive oil. It's heart healthy, but only if you keep it far away from your refrigerator. A little storage knowledge goes a long way when it comes to making the most of your favorite fruits. Let's wrap up with something most of us use every day: olive oil. It's often called liquid gold, and for good reason. Olive oil is rich in healthy fats and antioxidants. It's a staple in the Mediterranean diet, which has been shown to support heart health, reduce inflammation, and even boost brain function. But if you're keeping your olive oil in the fridge, you might be undoing a lot of those benefits. Here's the issue. When olive oil gets cold, it solidifies. You'll notice it turns cloudy and thick. That may look harmless, but there's a deeper problem. If the bottle goes in and out of the fridge repeatedly, the constant temperature changes can cause the oil to oxidize. And oxidation breaks down the healthy fats, the very ones that make olive oil so good for you. Even worse, oxidation can create free radicals. These unstable molecules are linked to aging, inflammation, and chronic disease. That's the exact opposite of what you're trying to achieve by using olive oil in the first place. And let's talk flavor. Good olive oil has a smooth, fruity, even peppery taste. But when it's been mistreated by cold storage, it goes flat, dull, sometimes even bitter. That salad dressing or pasta drizzle just won't hit the same. I once bought a fancy bottle of extra virgin olive oil and tossed it in the fridge without thinking. A week later, it was hard to pour, cloudy, and just didn't taste the same. Lesson learned. So what's the right way to store it? Keep your olive oil in a dark glass bottle or a stainless steel container. Store it in a cool, dry place, like a cabinet or pantry, away from heat and light. Never near the stove, and definitely not in the refrigerator. High-quality olive oil can last up to 2 years if stored properly. Like your body, it needs a little care and protection to do its job well. Next time you reach for that bottle, remember, olive oil works best when you keep it cool, but not cold. Let's take a moment to let it all sink in. We just walked through 9 everyday foods that many of us store in the fridge without thinking twice. And yet, those tiny habits, ones we've followed for years, might actually be hurting our health, our meals, and even our wallets. But here's the good news. You don't have to toss everything out or buy fancy equipment to make a change. You just need a little awareness. Think about it. Moving potatoes from the fridge to the pantry. Keeping your honey in the cabinet. Storing onions where they can breathe. These are small actions, but over time, they protect nutrients, preserve taste, and reduce waste. They keep your food safer. And when food is treated right, it treats you right in return. Your kitchen isn't just where you cook. It's where your health begins. And every time you make a better choice, you're making a better life. That's something worth holding on to. Let's take a step back and look at what we've learned. From potatoes to olive oil, we've uncovered simple truths that most people overlook. These 9 foods don't belong in the fridge, and now you know why. It's not just about avoiding mushy textures or odd flavors. It's about protecting your health and getting the most out of what you eat. And the best part? These fixes don't cost a thing. All it takes is storing your food in the right spot. That's it. A shift in habit, a label on a jar, or moving something to a pantry. Small changes really can make a big difference. Food is fuel. When we store it right, we feel the difference in energy, in comfort, and in peace of mind. Now it's your turn. Have you been refrigerating any of these foods without realizing it? What's one small change you're going to try this week? Let us know in the comments below. Your story might help someone else make a smarter choice. If you found this helpful, please hit the like button, subscribe for more simple health tips, and share this video with a friend or loved one. Good food habits start in everyday moments, just like this one.